I'm watching the clock for the 10 o'clock countdown. Good morning, everyone. I'm now showing 10 o'clock, kind of looking across the profiles to see who we have. Good morning, Julia. Julia McDonald, good morning.
Good morning.
You know who I acknowledge first, right? Exactly. Good morning, Mr. President. Sorry you're in second place, but good to have you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, everyone. Are we ready to call the meeting to order? A couple of nods. We're ready to go. Well, thank you very much. Good morning. This is our January 22nd committee meeting. Again, welcome. We're doing it by Zoom, and every 100% of us are now Zooming. One of these days, this pandemic will be in our rearview mirror, and we can get back to what I think we all now appreciate, the good old days and the great way of doing it and interacting with one another. I understand that the students are back on campus and the lifeblood of the university is shining brightly. Heard in a comment from Regent Spiller a couple of days ago about the first day of classes and the activity on campus and seeing the students and how refreshing that was to note that. And I just wish today that we could be on campus to witness that ourselves. So with that being said, because it is a Zoom meeting, we have adopted the practice of conducting a roll call We normally don't do that on committee meetings, but with Zoom, we're doing that policy. So with that, I will call on Secretary Brinkley to conduct a roll.
Morning. Regent Bale,
Present.
Regent Ball,
Present.
Secretary Brinkley is present. Regent Edmond,
Present.
Chair Higdon,
Present.
Regent Henson,
Present.
Vice Chair McKinney,
Present.
Regent Milliken,
Present.
Regent Nichols,
Present.
Regent Spiller,
Present.
Regent West.
Present.
Mr. Chair, we have 11 regents present, representing the quorum of the board.
Thank you. That's an outstanding turnout. Good morning again to everyone. These are committee meetings, so we'll proceed directly into our agenda, calling first on Regent Bell, Chair of the Academic Affairs Committee.
Well, the Academic Affairs Committee has only 2 action items for discussion today. We do have Provost Stevens with us, and the first action concerns an instructional leadership for school principal Master of Arts in Education program. And Provost Stevens, if you would lead a discussion on that.
I believe Corinne Murphy is here.
Right.
Good
Corinne?
morning. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share this work with you. This is coming out of our Education Administration Leadership and Research Department, led by Dr. Gary Houchins as the program coordinator, and I believe Dr. Houchins is on this call as well. The Kentucky Department of Education and the Educational Standards Board, up through 2013, did allow for Kentucky educators to pursue principalship through the master's degree. As of 2013, they removed the master's degree as an option and made it a requirement that you had to have a master's degree before you pursued the principal program. And so at that point, we closed our master's degree in principal leadership. And most recently, they have revised that requirement, and now you are allowed again to pursue principalship and a master's degree simultaneously, or as is this program, integrated. And so there is a vast need for leadership within our schools, especially principals. Just in 1 year alone, there was over 180 turnover of the principal positions across the state of Kentucky. And so we are excited to provide this option again to our educators and our educational leaders across the state. And we look forward to welcoming them, especially as we finish out the Wallace Foundation grant, which was an over $5 million grant that helped us revise the principal pipeline across the state. So this is a nice opportunity for us to provide this master's degree program again to our constituents.
Very good. Dr. Houchins, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you. Appreciate the board and members of the WKU community hearing our presentation this morning. Dean Murphy did a great job of sort of providing the background on this degree. I can tell you that we have inquiries every semester from a number of potential students who are interested in pursuing the principalship at the master's level. And over the last 7 or 8 years, we've had to turn them away, unfortunately. And so this has an opportunity to grow our program without adding any additional resources or personnel, because we often get teachers who are fairly new in their career, and yet they know early on they want to pursue a career in school administration. And so the master's degree gives them the opportunity to do that. But it also sets them up to be able to do other advanced credentials with us later on at the rank 1 level. So we're able to look beyond just the master's program and the principal program here and see opportunities to grow our programs for superintendent certification, supervisor of instruction, and other administrative credentials. So we see this as a great way of enhancing and growing the program with no additional resources required.
Okay, we do have all members of the academic committee present today. Does anyone have any questions, comments? If not, I'll
This looks to
entertain-
me like, just a comment, this looks to me like a win-win situation with no downside.
Any other comments, questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve this recommendation, proposal.
So moved.
Okay, have a motion from Regent
Second.
Milliken. Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. All right, motion passes. This is a good time to, I think, recognize the work that Dr. Houchins has done statewide with education. He's, I believe, still serving on the Kentucky Board of Education and has been an advocate and someone from Western Kentucky University that has a statewide presence, and we appreciate that.
Thanks, Dr. Bell. My term on the board is up, but I'm grateful for that recognition and have been truly honored to serve in that role.
Well, we appreciate the work you're still doing at Western Kentucky University, especially. All right. Our second item concerns some emeriti appointments, recommendations, and I'll ask Provost Stevens to tell us about these three individuals.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The first is Dr. Terry Wilson, Professor of Environmental Education in the School of Teacher Ed. He joined WKU in August 1989 and almost immediately in 1990 testified before a congressional subcommittee related to the National Environmental Education Act. In addition to his many years as a faculty member, Dr. Wilson served as a director of the WKU Center for Environmental Education and Sustainability and the board of directors for numerous state, national, and international organizations, to include the executive board of the National Council for Accreditation of Teacher Education and the North American Association for Environmental Education, where he also served as president in 2002. He's an accomplished scholar. Dr. Wilson received the inaugural President's Award for Sustainability at WKU in 2012. He was the first professor in the United States to receive the General Motors Green Educator Award in 2011 and was recognized as an Environmental Education College Teacher of the Year. Throughout his career, Dr. Wilson was instrumental in promoting leadership in energy and environmental design, awareness and development of the LEED certification for Gary Ransdell Hall, which was the first building in Kentucky to receive this designation. Second, Dr. Thomas Nicholson is a professor of public health. Dr. Nicholson joined WKU in 1983, and among his many accomplishments, he was the first professor in the College of Health and Human Services to receive both research and teaching awards. He is well regarded by his students and also served as an adjunct associate professor of family and community medicine at the University of Louisville. He's published over 65 journal articles in both national and international journals and either authored or co-authored 7 book chapters. Dr. Nicholson has served as a faculty mentor within the Department of Public Health and as a reviewer for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, providing professional editing for drug treatment and manuals. He continues to add to his research portfolio. He has served his discipline well and WKU for 38 years. And finally, Dr. Linda Brown, who joined WKU in August 1988 and was the first female faculty member in the Department of Agriculture. She served as assistant dean for Ogden College from 1999 to 2004. and chair of the Department of Agriculture from 2014 to 17. Additionally, she served as the first advisor for the Ceres Women Fraternity and the Alpha Zeta chapter as an advisor to the Agronomy Club at WKU. Dr. Brown was instrumental in contracting for graduate students with Alltech and served as an officer of the Kentucky Forage and Grassland Council. She continues to share her passion for WKU agriculture with others during her retirement. That's all three excellent, accomplished, worthy faculty who serve full careers here at WKU.
Well, thank you for those recommendations. Does anyone have any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of these three emeriti positions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Regent Ball and a second by Regent Spiller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. And that is all of the business for the academic committee. I do want to make one shout out again to our forensics team, which has been considered the #1 academic program in forensics for many years, if not decades. And I think at a recent competition, one of our students, Derek Collins, got the top speaker award at a major competition. So our forensics team continues to lead the way nationally, and I'm awfully proud of them, as I'm sure everyone else is. Mr. Chairman, that's all our business.
Thank you, Chair Bell, and thanks for the shout out to the forensic team. Appreciate that. Next, we turn to finance and budget. Chair Jason McKinney.
All right, there's 4 items on our agenda today. The first of which is acceptance of the auditor's reports for WKYU-TV and WKYU-FM radio for the year ended June 30th, 2020. Susan, do you have something, a presentation, or do you want to go straight to Brad?
Yes, we do have a PowerPoint. So Jeff, if you could pull that up. So while Jeff is pulling it up, let me just say that before I turn it over to our managing partner with Crow, Brad Shilley, for our radio and our TV, both were clean audits, unqualified opinions, which is the best you can get in an audit. With the NCAA agreed upon procedures, there were no exceptions noted. Again, good report. And so with those introductory comments, I will turn it over to Brad Shilley with Crow. And Jeff, if you'll advance the slides one more, and then the next one will be where Brad starts.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Susan. Glad to be with you all this morning to walk through some of the results of the WKU-TV and FM financial statements, and then also go through the NCAA agreed upon procedures. So we'll start with I always like to present this slide as we're going through, because many times presenting to you 2 or 3 times a year, and you may be wondering, what I'm presenting about this time. So just to lay that out there, this time we'll be covering the TV and FM financial statements, and as I mentioned, the NCAA agreed upon procedures. Back in October, we went through the rest of the other reports listed here, the audit report for the university, single audit, and then the other required communication, either by audit standards or by Kentucky requirements. Go ahead to the next slide. There you go. So just a high level overview from TV and FM radio. As Susan mentioned, we did provide unmodified or unqualified opinions on both sets of financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance. Means it's a clean opinion and free of material misstatements. We issued both of those just earlier this month, about a week ago. For the June 30, 2020 fiscal year end. Those audits and a certification are required by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And so that certification was also completed shortly thereafter when the financial statements were finalized. Next slide. Wanted to provide just a little bit of financial information. I believe you have the financial statements with you, or a link to those, but this kind of gives you a high-level overview of those two entities. So in the upper section is the TV information. In the lower section is the FM radio section. So this just gives you a snapshot looking at total assets and deferred outflows, liabilities and deferred inflows, and the net position for TV, and looking at both years. So you can see there actually had a negative net position in both years, but a favorable increase this year compared to the prior year. As a reminder, that the negative net position is entirely driven by the portion of the net pension liability and net OPEB liability that is allocated to the TV. So that's why you see that large deficit there. That's why your liabilities are significantly higher than your assets. As you look at the income statement side of things, you'll see revenues decreased slightly this year, but the expenses decreased by an even more significant amount. The majority of that was due to some changes on the pension and OPEB side, and that decrease in liability being reflected here. But there were also some changes within the station that resulted in some additional expense decreases. So all of that said, you ended up with a change in net position of a positive $345,000 this year on the TV side. On FM, again, similar format as TV. Here you see the net position at the end of the year was approximately $514,000 positive. You do still have a portion of the net pension and OPEB liabilities flowing through FM as well. Just has less of a hit as compared to the TV. But that is, again, why that's the majority of the liabilities that are included for FM. As you look at the income statement side, again, you actually see a slight increase in revenue this year. The majority of that was related to some investment returns, whereas last year there was some investment loss. Then on the expense side, again, you see some decrease there. And again, a majority of that is related to pension and OPEB changes that are flowing through. Overall, though, a positive change in net position of almost $500,000. Next slide. These next two slides go through just some communication that we're required to disclose. And so you may recall we do this on the university side as well. Just outlining, again, our responsibility is to go through an audit and provide an audit opinion on these. It's management's responsibility for the actual financial statements themselves. There were no new significant accounting policies or accounting estimates this year, nothing to report there. As I mentioned, these were clean financial statements, so we had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls to report. If you move ahead to the next slide. There were also no corrected or uncorrected misstatements on either entity. So again, that's a good thing that the financial statements that were presented to us is what you're seeing. So there weren't any audit adjustments posted or proposed. And then no other significant difficulties, disagreements, no other consultations, really no other issues to report. So overall, very clean and a good process this year again. So appreciate Mr. Brinkley and Ms. England and everyone else's participation throughout the audit process on both TV and FM. I think it went very smoothly this year, given the circumstances. Next slide. So before I jump into this, does anyone have any questions on TV, radio? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So on the NCAA, as you may recall, we do a required agreed upon procedures. So this is required, as you can see here, by NCAA Constitution. And there are currently 53 revenue testing procedures, 65 expense testing procedures, 3 additional minimum procedures on those on the schedule. And then there are 12 minimum procedures for what they call other reporting. And so those you'll see listed throughout here. These again are all standard testing procedures that are required by NCAA. So every Division I university in the country goes through these same agreed upon procedures and is required and subject to the same testing procedures. Next slide, please. So the first schedule you'll see in the report is the schedule of revenues and expenses. And the first slide, and we don't have it here, but the first schedule is the schedule of revenues. The next page is the schedule of expenses. Again, very prescriptive format here. So the NCAA requires that the revenue is broken down into these 19 categories, and the expenses are broken down into the 22 categories that are included there. This again is just for consistency of reporting as you're looking across Division I universities. With that being said, everyone has a little bit different way of maybe how they classify some of those things. So just keep that in mind if you are looking at other universities. High level information here, your revenues and expenses for fiscal year 20 were $31.5 million compared to 2019 of about 30.8. So you saw a slight increase there. On the direct institutional support, this is one that often gets brought up as a question. That was about 14.1 million this year versus about 13.5 in the prior year. And what this really reflects is essentially the difference between the revenues and expenses. So how much of the support the university is providing towards athletics. But one of the key things to mention here is, $14 million is a fairly large number. Out of that, about 6.1 million of that is athletic student aid. So the student aid portion of that is also flowing through the 14.1. So it's not as if you're, writing a check for $14 million. This is a variety of different expenses that are flowing through, including the student aid, which is the largest. Next slide, please. I wanted to go through just a few of the revenue and expense procedures and really highlight the ones where we had what I'll call either exceptions or some additional information or variances. And so here you'll see in revenue, there were 3 different procedures where we had some variances that were identified. Procedure 5 is looking at net sales per ticket and looking at the report for that and comparing it to the schedule of revenues. When we looked at that, there was a variance of about $5,000. That, from our standpoint, is considered immaterial. That's in comparison to about $2.4 million of total ticket sales, so a very immaterial amount overall. Procedure 12 is very similar as we're looking at indirect institutional support. The variance was shown of about $6,000 compared to about $3.7 million in total indirect institutional support. So again, an immaterial difference between the supporting schedule and what was actually reported. Then procedure 41 was the last variance that we had here. And this is really just a timing difference. So it's a difference in when you actually receive the IMG royalty revenue versus when it was actually recorded as revenue. So there was about $11,000 timing difference there. So again, nothing to be alarmed of, but it is something that is reported just because it doesn't match exactly. You didn't collect all of it in FY20. All the other revenue procedures had either no exceptions or were not applicable. On the expense side, much easier to go through. There were no issues to report or no variances to report. All the procedures had either no exceptions or, again, some of them are not applicable based on the NCAA guidelines. Next slide. we look at the additional procedures, again, these are kind of broken down into two different categories, the additional minimum procedures. So in procedure 1 here, this is looking at the compliance or the compliance assistant in the university and comparing the amount of student aid that is provided and looking at that and comparing it to the support. And so there was an immaterial variance of about $55,000. And again, when you're comparing that to about $6.1 million of student aid, fairly insignificant. And that is a cumulative variance. So there were some pretty small variances that really accumulated across all the different sports. All of the other procedures in this category, there again had no exceptions, were not applicable. And the same thing on the minimum procedures for other reporting items. We had no exceptions there, or they were not applicable. And I believe that covers everything that I had. If you want to go to the next slide. Anyone have any questions on the NCAA procedures? And again, I would just thank Randy and everyone else for their assistance throughout the process on the NCAA side as well. So if no other questions, thank you very much. And
all right, thank you, Brad. Does anybody have any questions or comments on FB1 and FB2?
Jason, I have a quick comment. I appreciate Brad and everyone else at Crow that has helped us. Our audits are particularly important for the grant money that we receive from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the thoroughness that they have approached this with has assisted us in many ways in reinforcing a very positive relationship with CPB. So I appreciate that. And also, please, for the record, note my abstention on FB1 due to conflict. Thanks.
I'd like to congratulate Regent Brinkley on a clean report and obviously a good managerial job that he does overseeing those agencies.
And Mr. Chairman, I second what Phil just said. I was going to say the same thing. Great work on part of the team. And Brad, as a member of this committee, I appreciate a boring presentation regarding our audit report. So thank you very much.
That's right. That's right. The more boring, the better.
That's exactly right. So you did great. Thank you. But that's a great job on part of the team and the athletic department as well, given the NCAA issues as well.
That's the other thing I was going to say, is just to recognize the staff work that went in on our side behind the scenes to make sure that this comes out clean for us. It reflects a tremendous amount of work that can get overlooked and just how quickly we see these things. So I thank them for that.
Okay, nobody else has any comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve FB1.
So moved.
All right, I got a first. Do I got a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving FB1, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, FB1 passes. If you hear anything in the background, my wife has apparently scheduled a furniture delivery for the middle of this meeting, so I apologize. All right, does anybody on FB2, I'll entertain a motion on FB2.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Thank you, George. All right. Thank you, David. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. The motion carries. The next item on our list is FB3, the acceptance of the statement of revenue and expenditures for the 6 months ending December 31st. Susan, do you have a presentation on that?
Yeah, just briefly. So next slide, please. So I apologize. I just noticed a typo on this. All of this second quarter report is just excellent news for the university. I'm really proud of how the campus is, how we're tracking on revenue and how the campus is doing on meeting our expenditure budget targets. So first off, on the revenue highlights, overall, we're at total revenue 71% of the annual budget as opposed to 61% this time last year. So great news on that. If you drill in a little bit further, excellent news on student tuition and fees. We're actually at 6 months in, we're at 97.9% of budget for our tuition and fees as opposed to 89% at this time last year. So you can see we're fall tuition is tracking well over budget, and which is excellent news. We did not see what we anticipated as far as what we called the COVID impact. And just to remind everyone, we budgeted 200 additional freshman students and ended up bringing in over 400. And that bringing in those additional freshman students actually helped close the gap as we anticipated our smaller classes moving through the pipeline would, we would see a 4% decline in tuition. So as far as tuition and fees, excellent news. State appropriation, again, that's excellent news. In our original budget, we were anticipating a 10% reduction in state appropriation related to COVID. That did not come to pass. We are anticipating no mid-year reductions at this point. Grants and contracts are up from prior year, primarily due to the increase in CARES funding. And auxiliaries, I think, as we anticipated, is down over prior year, primarily related to COVID and its impact on our campus auxiliaries. So next slide, please. On the expenditure, again, don't let the fact that we're tracking slightly higher, 52.9% this year, is primarily just the impact of our budget being so much lower than it was in the prior year. Most of that slight increase is directly related to an increase in financial aid spend with our new scholarship programs and some timing of some spend and expenses compared to prior year. We had some units, campus units, that paid some invoices that could have been paid in the spring semester. They went ahead and paid them all in December, which we weren't anticipating. So again, absolutely no news. The great news on the expenditure side, as I said, campus is doing a great job, and actual spending is down almost 8 million over prior year. So that's the highlights on the, and I can actually say very highlights on the second quarter statement of revenue and expenditures. So Jason, I'm happy to take any questions.
This is George. I don't have a question. It probably is more of something I'd love to see later. Is great. This is a great report. Great that our enrollment is up. I hope that as a university, though, we really look at our freshman class coming in after an interrupted senior year and how they actually do academically, and how they, and even anything we can address socially as our own campus. I've done a lot of reading, and I'm really concerned about the break of social relationships that we've had as a result of the pandemic that we're going through. And everybody, I can't wait to just get out of the house, and I just want to get into something. And so, but I am concerned whether it's a mental health capacity or anything that is impacting that group of people. So just making sure that we're really tracking and seeing what's happening with them and how that compares to what a typical freshman class that comes in. That's the only thing. So again, great report, excited about what's going on, but am worried about what it actually looks like, not so much from a financial standpoint, but actually what our students look like and how they're doing at the end after the first semester, given what they're coming off of.
Regent McKinney, might I address that, please?
Yes, please.
George, it's the absolute right question, and we're going to bookend the meeting with the other part, which is the academic progression, particularly of that first year class, but all of our students. My great concern last fall was for our students who were not able to be self-directed, didn't have the ability to support themselves at home with online learning exclusively, that we created an opportunity for them to be here. And so I'm really proud of the work of our faculty, all the support staff that created the opportunity for them fully 2/3 of our courses are in person and hybrid, with only about 1/3 being online. And so when you look at the retention rates of that first year class, we're focused on making sure that we supported them in a way that we've not had to support other courses, other students in other classes. And so one of the things we see is the retention, and we track it, it's that retention rate, but also disaggregating it. And so we're focused in on where it is we might be doing less well than we have in a typical year and where we're overperforming. And so a couple things jump out. Our most at-risk students are the students who are most at risk. And that it bears itself out in those data. And the other thing that I will say, and this is why coming back in person was so important to us, and I think it demonstrates the importance of the in-person experience and that WKU experience that we create for all of our students, is that students who've had in-person and hybrid instruction are persisting in some ways at a higher rate than previous years because of all the other support we put in place for them, including financial. The place where we're challenged are those students who did not have in-person instruction, who did it completely online. They haven't had the totality of the experience that they hoped, particularly in the freshman year. It's a little bit different sophomore through senior. And so we're having to work really, really hard, not just to get those young people back in the spring semester, but also to make sure that they do have that in-person experience in the second semester. And so Ethan will talk about that in his report, but I wanted to address it directly now. I will tell you this, our retention rate for freshmen is even with our record-setting retention rate from last year, which is remarkable given where we are. So I stole a little bit of the news that Ethan will make, but there's much more to come.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, and I look forward to hearing from Ethan. When I looked at the attachment you sent out yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that had the sort of successes, I was really impressed with the numbers, but still really worried about that group, because I really think we're gonna have to watch. And I look at it not only from a student perspective, like, our faculty and staff, I mean, everybody's been through a lot. And then just thinking about, whenever we get to whatever the new normal is, when we get to that, are there little things that we're seeing that are underlying that we may have to provide additional support, or just be aware of it as we go forward? So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve FB3.
So moved.
Thank you, George. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the motion carries. And that takes us to our last item on the agenda, approval of the personnel actions. Susan, do you have anything you'd like to say about those?
Well, just briefly, the actions, of course, were attached to the agenda. I met with Regent Brinkley and Regent Spiller a couple of days ago. We went through the reports. Nothing really stands out. I think the only thing to mention is that our additional payments are down over prior year, which we would expect when we see our expenses down. So other than that, I really don't have any other comments, Jason.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Does anybody on the board have a question or comment about the personnel actions? Okay, if hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve FB4.
So moved.
Thank you, Linda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. All in favor of approving FB4, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries, and that is the end of our agenda for the Finance and Budget Committee.
Thank you, Jason. That's great news all the way around, and great questions and comments. We next turn to Student Affairs Committee. Regent Henson chairs that committee. Regent Henson.
Thank you, thank you, Chair Higdon. Nice to see you all. And I also want to kind of show that I'm visited the WKU store the last time I actually made it into Bowling Green. And I am kind of a walking advertisement for the WKU store. You can get this lovely pullover shirt for a very reasonable price and all these pins and such. So I just wanted to kind of make a plug for the WKU store before we start the Student Affairs Committee report.
Regent
And
Henson, your big red pin far outshines mine. That is about 3 inches, I think.
oh, of course, well, I'd always have to have the bigger one. But you like the pullover? In this is one of the new styles that's in the WKU store. But I thought I would wear all the, kind of put me in that WKU go top spirit this morning when I was getting ready to get on the Zoom call with you all. Now, Dr. Logan, are you available?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
And how are you, my friend?
Doing well, thank you. Regent Henson, glad to be here.
Would you like to start your presentation, sir?
Yes, ma'am, thank you so much. Thank you, Regent Henson. Thank you to the board, President Caboni. I have a brief information items to share with the board from the Student Affairs Committee this morning. And I'm going to share my screen. Very good. I'm going to just look for a quick affirmation from anybody that this is something that you can see. All right. Thank you. And thank you for this moment to speak to you today. I wanted to give a brief update on enrollment for the spring and then provide information about our newest facilities on campus, our first year village that's coming online this fall, but more importantly, to talk a little bit about the programming that we're putting together for the freshman first year village experience, our living learning communities, and to provide this information to the board. I've got very capable and prominent professionals within our institution who are going to be presenting with me today. Blair Jensen, our Assistant Director from Housing and Residence Life, and Sierra Waller, Assistant Director from the Center of Innovative Teaching and Learning, who were co-leaders in this program development, and they're going to provide you with an update on our living learning communities coming online this fall. First, I wanted just to talk real quickly about spring registration numbers. We talked about this at the last board meeting about where we were and where we were tracking. We were tracking very closely to on target for spring enrollment. And this is our enrollment from this first week of school for the spring. I don't want to spend a lot of time on here because there's more exciting things to hear from our staff about and faculty about our living learning programs, but I do want to highlight just where we are with spring persistence. And you can see a little bit of the variance between fall 19 and 20 in terms of number of students from the fall who have enrolled in the spring, but more importantly, to look at these percentages of persistence. And in some cases, in most cases, slightly above where we were last year. Overall enrollment for spring retention, and this is continuing students, is up. It's 0.8 of a point. That's up, and that's a significant number when we talk about conversations of persistence. And what would be good in a good year, as Susan had said, spring enrollment looks healthy. This looks good in a good year. In a year of COVID and the challenges of the pandemic, this is an exceptional, momentous enrollment. And to think of the fact of the compounded extenuating circumstances that our students endured to be on campus this fall and to be engaged in our institution and education, it's a culmination of the faculty in the classroom, the support staff, and the services that we've provided across the institution that helped us maintain this registration as if it were a normal year without any complications. So what that looks like, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, could I jump in and say, I want to mention this directly and explicitly. The university, the students, everyone's appreciation for the remarkable effort of our faculty and our staff to make this happen. This occurs only because of one reason, because the individuals who have contact with our students invest their time, their effort, and their energy in helping these young people understand how important a degree is, but also getting them back, getting them registered, getting them enrolled, and addressing any hurdles they might have, personal or financial. And so I just want to call out the extraordinary efforts of our faculty, our staff, and in particular on the staff side. I heard the stories of ACDC, I'm not supposed to call it that, but our advising center and development center for students who provide advising for first year and second year students. Doing advising calls at 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. at night to make sure that these young people can get in their courses and we help support them. Same thing with our ISAC Academy and all the students who participate there. All of our student affairs support staff and all of our faculty who do advising and support as well. It's been a remarkable, remarkable effort.
Thank you, Dr. Caboni. I would like to echo that. Truly, it is a community effort that has made this a successful spring enrollment, and I'm really excited to show you spring enrollment this week. And the dust will still settle. There's still some activity that's happening this week, but we're within 13 students of where we were last spring, and so that's really an exciting piece. Even though that spring 201 doesn't make sense, 2021 is what that's supposed to read. And so I appreciate that. And I also wanted to talk to Regent Nichols' comment earlier about students in the fall, what of these students coming in from their year of COVID experience in high school, how we're going to be prepared to help support them. And I had a conversation this week with our Dean of Students, Dr. Lynn Holland, and truly, we talked about the importance of engagement across any elements of engagement that we can find, and really how that is going to be a focus for the fall in terms of how we're finding an engagement opportunity for students. And that's a very broad term. That's the classroom experience. That's a student organization group. That is all of the amazing things that we can do across the institution. Just finding a connection is going to be monumental and very important. And a great example of an engagement and a connection is our living learning communities and our living learning programs. And so I'm going to turn over this presentation to Blair Jensen and Sierra Waller to give you some more updated information about this program as it comes online. This is an existing program. We're expanding and enhancing this program with the first year village, and it's really going to be a hallmark of what our first year village living experience can be for our new students coming to the Hill in the fall, starting fall 21. So if you will join me in welcoming Blair Jensen and Sierra Waller.
Good morning, board. I will speak for my colleague Sierra. We are truly honored and humbled to have the opportunity to share with you our work with living learning programs. So since the 2008 AACNU publication titled High Impact Educational Practices, What They Are, Who Has Access, and Why They Matter, in which learning communities were categorized as a high impact practice, greater attention has truly been paid to ways to incorporate this construct into higher education. But learning communities themselves are not new. In fact, the earliest learning communities can be traced all the way back to 6th century BCE in the highly structured Greek colony of Croton in southern Italy. It's there that Pythagoras taught disciples who lived and studied together. So in actuality, the earliest learning communities were in fact residential learning communities. So since 2008, there has been a renewed recognition of the importance and impact of the integration of living and learning for students residing on campus, and as a result, a resurgence of learning communities and residential learning communities. But really, there's a significant variation in the organizational characteristics of these communities. So before we get too much into our content, we wanted to provide you with a working definition for living learning communities. So we truly define LLCs as cohorts of students that are intentionally grouped together in a residence hall who have a shared academic experience along with co-curricular learning activities for engagement with their peers. So when we say living learning communities, that's truly what we mean. That's our working definition. Now, you're going to note that throughout the presentation, we make reference to living learning programs. Living learning programs really serves as an overarching umbrella that incorporates living learning communities, LLCs, and interest or theme-based housing known as living learning programs. So it's important to note the distinction. All LLCs are LLPs, but not LLPs are also LLCs. So there's a slight differentiation there. So this is our working definition for living learning communities. Now, you might be wondering, why we've had so much focus on LLPs. Why are they so important? What does it mean for students participating in these important programs? Well, the National Study of Living Learning Programs, which was actually developed in 2003 and then administered in 2004 to undergraduate students at 34 different post-secondary institutions in the United States, and obtained responses of over 24,000 students, actually found that even just 1 year of experience in a living learning program had lasting effects for students. So those that had lived in an LLP during their first year had higher levels of academic self-confidence. They were more likely to be a mentor to other students and remained more committed to civic engagement even 3 years later. So the investigators actually followed up with the students that participated in the initial 2004 study in 2007 and were able to identify these outcomes. Now, a more recent study that was conducted in 2020 really looked at the relationship between residential learning community participation, engagement, and perceived gains in learning. And what they found was that there were increased levels of student participation, interaction, collaboration, and faculty engagement with students participating in these programs. So as with most high impact practices, it's not enough to simply offer these opportunities and to invite students to participate in them. It's truly what we do while the students are participating in these programs that has the lasting impact. We also wanted to share with you this morning some numbers related to persistence. So you can see there on the screen the national persistence rate of first-year students that participate in living learning communities at 93%. Just below that, you'll see our institutional persistence rate of first-year students residing on campus at 90%. So first-year students living on campus at WKU are persisting from their fall to spring semester at a 90% rate. And you'll also see our institutional persistence rate of first-year students at 88%. So we can see that there is a small gap between students that participate in these communities and those that persist from semester to semester. So we know that we can have a greater impact on students' persistence by offering these influential programs. And as if that wasn't enough to convince you of their importance, I'm going to invite my colleague Sierra to share a little bit more information with you, starting with some testimonies from students participating in our current programs. Sierra?
Hello. So based on that research, our smaller assessment group, we found that living learning programs have the greatest impact on a student's academic transition to college, social transition to college, and sense of belonging. When a student's academic transition is smooth, and when their social transition to college is smooth, and when they feel that they belong and have that sense of belonging to the institution, the likelihood that that student will be retained increases drastically. The next few slides will show why we have selected these as our outcomes that we intend for our living learning programs to deliver on. So the following student testimonies will highlight the importance of those that I just spoke to. With this first one kind of highlighting the importance of a smooth academic transition. As you can see that this student is saying that they're more involved on campus and they've gained valuable study groups to help with their academic transition. The next student testimony highlights the importance of that social transition. So looking more at how being involved in cultural events and finding resources and opportunities that they're interested in has improved their experience here at WKU. The last testimony highlights that sense of belonging, making friends, being able to communicate with people, learning about pronouns and different things. So we look at these student testimonies as they speak to those three outcomes that we hope for our programs to deliver on. New this year, we have worked with the Office of the Provost to develop the LLP Faculty Fellows Program. Similar to the direction of other universities, the Faculty Fellows Program will assist in the coordination, planning, pedagogy, and assessment of our academic LLCs. This summer, our Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning will host an LLC Faculty Fellows Summer Institute for training that, as my director will say, we hope will not only serve to share best practices, but also facilitate cross-disciplinary cooperation and lay the foundation for future interdepartmental cooperation. Together, this has the potential of enhancing WKU's first year experience as well as the Colonnade program with linked courses and curriculum requirements in our academic LLCs. So this slide kind of goes over just a little bit of that position description of our faculty fellows, the expectations, and the communication and relationship building that we're hoping that this new group will provide for our students. We really want to have our faculty engage with our students in these new programs. Next, we move into the numbers. So for the 21-22 academic year, we have 21 living learning programs, 13 of which serve as our academic living learning communities. So as my colleague Blair shared earlier, the difference between the overall living learning programs and living learning communities. Our 13 academic living learning communities require 2 linked courses in the academic unit, a colonnade course, or a cross-disciplinary experience. This allows advisors to curate more cohesive schedules for our students and extend the learning experience across courses. For example, in our Leadership Communication LLC, students will take colonnade courses Leadership 200 and Communication 145, which is part of our public speaking course, where the linked curriculum will allow students and the faculty to discuss aspects of leadership and communication styles in both courses and link assignments, such as having speeches that really speak to the aspects of leadership. So we would like to see those crossovers in those courses where students are having that cohesive learning experience. Other cross-discipline LLCs include our new addition, sustainability, where our students will have the opportunity to cross-examine the lens of sustainability through geography, the environment, social equity, and economic stability. Our Seeds LLC creates the unique opportunity for an interdisciplinary approach within the unit for our students in that community discover the crossovers in careers and different majors and offerings in our School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Our other academic LLCs include agriculture, business, criminology, education has their top of class LLC, exercise science, forensic science, School of Media, Nursing, and Psychology, which has a wonderful acronym, PSYCH, Psychology Students Yearning to Climb Higher. And of course, the Citizenship and Social Justice Academic LLC. Part of that, we have 8 living learning programs that are interdisciplinary and interest-based. Some communities, like our ISEC Academy, which is our Intercultural Student Engagement Center Academy, allow students to take up to 2 linked courses to foster a shared academic curricular experience along with a co-curricular and programmatic engagement to foster community. Other living learning programs that in addition to ISEC, include Chinese Flagship, Global Learning, our second-year ISEC Academy, which we're really excited about for returning students, Stonewall Suites, which speaks to our LGBTQIA students, ROTC, our Summer Scholars Program, and a Transfer LLC. So, I'm sorry. I thought I heard someone chiming in there. To the numbers that we have on the slide, the 21 living learning programs are housed in 8 residence halls, including our first year village, Mitten Hall, and Hilltopper Hall. These LLPs represent a total of 834 students. The housing application has been open since December 1st, and that's where students indicate their interest in our LLPs, which this date is about a month and a half later than last year. But to date, we have 369 students that have indicated interest in an LLP, which represents about 28% of the total number of new applicants and new students who have applied for housing. We are looking forward to seeing this number climb as more students apply for housing and with our spring recruitment and promotion. Lastly, we invite you to take a virtual VIP look inside our newest residence hall as part of our first year village, Normal Hall. And as you're looking at this video, which highlights our beautiful building here, we'll open for any questions that you have. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask myself or Blair. Also, if you would like access to this presentation to kind of look over it a little bit more, we're happy to share that with you all.
Sierra, this is George. Great presentation by you and Blair. Question is, of the group that's already signed up, what's the diversity breakdown by gender, race, and ethnic as you go into these LLPs?
That's a very interesting question for asking. Thank you so much. I don't have those numbers available with me right now, but I can definitely provide those to you and the board here in just a little bit.
Okay. Because I mean, it's beautiful but you know, I know that we've done well from a diversity standpoint in recruiting, but I'm just seeing if this is such a great program, which I totally fully support it, and it is. It's just making sure that we've got the diversity breakdown of that so that everybody's really getting the benefit, because that'll give us valuable information as we continue to improve it year after year. So that'd be helpful. Thank you.
And that is something that we're definitely aware of. This year, for the first time, we've created a phase process. We know that some of our students from different backgrounds or underrepresented scholars tend to apply a little later for housing. So we have a phase process to make sure that we're being aware to extend that opportunity in an equitable way. So we can give those opportunities and have the chance for all students to participate in the LLCs, not just our students that are first to the call there and applying in December and early January. So we've been very aware of that, thinking about different ways that we can collaborate with our partners and others across the campus to make sure that our LLPs are diverse and inclusive.
Thank you.
Sierra, I have a question. When do the students that are applying to WKU first become aware of these programs? Is it when they initially apply, or is it when they have already accepted and they're decided that they're going to WKU and they're enrolling or applying for housing?
Sure. So we actually have a website where we highlight our LLPs all throughout the year. Our housing and residence life and our admissions team always go through and make sure that in any of our recruitment programs and events that we have, that we're showcasing and highlighting these opportunities for students. So that advertising and promotion is available all throughout the year. However, the first opportunity for them to indicate their interest in an LLP is on that housing application that opens December 1st. So that's where they're able to indicate their preference and have the first opportunity to say, hey, that one seems interesting to me. I think I want to learn more about it. But from there, we recruit and we promote all throughout the spring. So even in our preview days and our other spring admission events, we're constantly informing students about these opportunities and pointing them to our website, connecting them with faculty, connecting them with students that are a part of these programs. We also have our program specialist, Kirsten Hooks, who personally makes calls to students to make them aware of the opportunities and what these LLP experiences look like. And Blair has just provided me with the gender breakdown of our LLPs, and we're looking at about 70% female and 30% male. We'll still be working on getting that, the ethnicity breakdown to provide for you as well.
Thank you. Just curious, I know I should know it. What's the gender breakdown for the whole university?
About 40%. So 60% female, about 40% male.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Just a comment on this, but under normal circumstances, this would be a great program. But I think during a pandemic, which may go on for some time, this is even more important in giving people a chance to interact and develop relationships. And it really sets Western apart from some other universities because it gives you a small college feel and experience in a setting where they have all the amenities of a major university. So great work to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that comment. And we are thankful for our program staff and faculty that through this year have found innovative ways to keep our students in our living learning programs engaged. And we're looking forward to enhancing that in the fall, should we be in similar circumstances.
Blair and Sierra, thank you. Does anyone have any more questions for them?
Julie, I have a comment, if I can, an observation. I really appreciate the background from Blair and Sierra. It's excellent. I love the way that this was done, and I think it's going to be successful. But I want to go back just a little bit to the very beginning where Ethan presented this statistic about spring to spring enrollment. I don't think we made enough of that. If my numbers are correct, we're off, I think, about 0.1% from spring to spring. Now, I know from a relative, I just received a communication from a comparable regional comprehensive university a couple of states away that same number on their campus is down 30%, 30. So I can't say enough about this number spring to spring and how important that is. I meant to say it at the time, but I just wanted to say, knowing what I know from a couple of colleagues of mine, this is a tremendous, it's a tremendous achievement.
Dr. Logan, would you like to add to that?
Thank you, Regent Henson. Regent Brinkley, I concur with your assessment. It's a very challenging time for many institutions of higher education across the country in terms of what their fall enrollment looked like. Ours was very healthy. We were not in the majority when we look at the way that we performed in terms of enrollment for the fall. And it was really a very concerted effort across the institution that helped maintain the consistency of our enrollment for spring. And those were unique among many. There are some other institutions that are doing well, but there are more institutions that have been challenged by COVID dramatically, as you have indicated in this conversation. So I also would echo that this is a big deal, and it's a very important part of where we are as an institution and how healthy we're going to be going into this next fall, and how well our students are performing. This is an important part for our students and for our students going forward. This is an important part of the story that we take to our potential prospective students also, in terms of how well this institution provides for their experience. And then to go back to Regent West, your comment about the promotion of living learning communities, living learning programs, as well as the new residence halls. We're leading with these items as promotional information that we're taking on the road virtually in terms of our recruitment and our outreach. So this is a very important part of our introduction to what the Hilltopper experience can be, and what opportunities we provide for our first year students.
Surely, psych students yearning to climb higher has to be the best use of an acronym I've heard in a while. Whoever thought that one up, I like it.
May I add something?
Yes, Cheryl.
We had some data analysis done, and it looks like it turned out that the average GPA for students in this just past fall semester was the same as it was in fall 2019, which is excellent. It was average GPA of 3.1, 3.12, something like that, which says that not only were our students dedicated to getting, doing their work and getting their grades and getting through the courses and enjoying their experience, but the faculty also helped them get through in a way that everyone could be successful. And so I thought that was actually a very interesting data point.
Congrats.
Regent Henson, may I also make a comment, please?
Of course, Dr. Gaboni.
The announcement at the my investiture 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, when we talked about, I guess almost 3 years ago, when we talked about the first year village, I said then, and I've continued to talk about that not being around new buildings and pushing the community to think about how this is transformative in our first year experience. And so what you heard today is really the beginnings of us shifting at a public comprehensive university to an Oxbridge model, Oxford and Cambridge. And for the price point that we're hitting, the differentiation that creates in the state and the region, and the personal attention that's focused on academics and engagement, I know this will be a standout program, not just in the state, not just in the region, but nationally. It is a model that elite privates aspire to, and that we're able to do this at our price point because of the investment of our faculty and our staff, the opportunity with new facilities to shape them in a way that creates that community. I think is going to be powerful in many ways: marketing, promotion, differentiation, but most importantly about altering that first year experience here at WKU. We've been shaping that freshman class. Last fall was the most qualified with GPA entering class in the history of the university. Those students are ever more hungry for an academic experience that is challenging and engaging, where they have contact with those full professors from the moment they set foot on campus. We deliver that already in the classroom, but exploding that out into the other 140 hours where they live and where they spend time not in class, I think is immensely powerful for retention, for the academic experience. And I was sharing with someone the other day, think about a first year student who takes 2 courses that are co-taught and co-planned by faculty. You heard some of them. I'm fascinated by the notion of a speech class or public address class that would look at 1920 to 1950, about everything that happened there, the World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, everything, all the great upheaval, but coupling a public address class with a history course, and then doing that alongside 24 colleagues and student colleagues where you really know your professor, where you sit down outside of class and have discussions in your living space, and you work together as teams on projects that at home that you bring to class together. And heck, maybe some faculty will walk down off the hill and come teach in the place where you live. That's unique among institutions like us. It's unique in higher education, and I'm really proud of the work we've done to get there. You think about the tethers that people have: athletics, Greek life, ISEC. This is just another touch, another way to engage those young people in a way that binds them together, bonds them to the institution, but also enhances the academic experience. Couldn't be prouder.
Thank you, President Caboni. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Logan? Chair Regents, that wraps up the report from the Student Affairs Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Henson, and thanks for your information item. We moved to our last committee, which is the Executive Committee, all members being present. We do not have any action items, but we do have 4 information items. We'll charge into those, starting with our master plan. Just a little bit of warning to my fellow regents. On some of the items, I think it probably is appropriate this morning to give our newest members a little bit of background of how we got to where we are and why we're talking about the topic today. So bear with me, and most importantly, share with us your comments as we proceed through these information items this morning. So with that being said, I know we're going to talk about the campus master plan, and Brian Russell, I will look to you to lead that discussion.
Thank you all, and very good morning. It's a bright sunny day here in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and we're glad to present something, the WKU master plan, that first I gotta say thank you to everybody that contributed to this new master plan. It's a visionary document, was started and supported by our WKU community. We had a lot of input. We worked with people that were in Bowling Green and Warren County that also contributed to the research and information. I gotta say thank you to the steering committee that Dr. Caboni led, and myself, and the Provost Stevens, Susan Howarth, and also Andrea Hales. Without their support, we couldn't have gotten through this, especially through COVID-19 and some unusual circumstances that really made us go virtual for the last half of this investigation. The Master Planning Committee that meets monthly on campus, and also community leadership, they were invaluable to our planning process. Special thank you to Planning, Design, and Construction as well. Josh Montgomery provided a lot of outstanding photography, aerial photography for us, and also Doris Hayes, who supported the efforts that it takes for a lot of the coordination and effort. I want to now take the time to say thank you to our professionals, Gensler Architects. Jeanette Scott's with us today, is going to actually do the presentation. Dave Brose, Steve Wilson, Megan, Nick, couldn't have done it without you, and I really enjoyed the process and the journey. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jeanette Scott, and if she can have the screen.
Perfect. Well, let me go ahead and just introduce. So I'm Dave Brose, principal at Gensler, and proud to kick off the WKU Master Plan. As Brian suggested, we started this journey almost 2 years ago in a world that was much different than we find ourselves in today. And we transitioned to an online environment, and the WKU really stepped in to make sure that we had the information needed, provided regular feedback, and thank you to Brian for his leadership of the team and the people that he already gave credit to. We'd also like to thank the hundreds of members of your community who took the time to stop and answer our questions, react to our ideas, and provide guidance. We can tell you that we really see that your community loves their campus, and they provided many amazing ideas of where the campus should go, many of which will influence what you see today. On your campus, our team is excited to be moving towards the completion of the WKU Commons at Helm. It's an amazing beacon of who WKU is and where WKU is heading. I also commend you that completing a plan in such a time of transition gives you an advantage to come out of this with a clear roadmap for your future that'll put you ahead of your institutional peers. So as Brian suggested, we have our team on the call today. You can wave your hand, and I'd like to introduce the two team members that will lead you through the summary of our findings of your campus master plan, both Jeanette Scott and Steve Wilson.
Thanks, Dave. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for having us with you this morning. When we last presented to you in April of last year, we had just concluded the first phase of the master plan project, and that culminated with the definition of our guiding principles. We described on that occasion in detail the campus engagement, the research, and the site analysis that we had completed. And the guiding principles guide the qualitative aspects of the design of the campus master plan are integral in responding to the big question of how we reimagine the campus experience to increase student enrollment, boost student retention, and promote student success objectives as defined in the strategic plan. So to start, first, we must reimagine thresholds to reveal hidden experiences. We must accelerate community building on campus, as we know that in-person experience is so vitally important to student success. We must focus student success towards tangible outcomes. We must exhibit a culture of holistic thinking, and we must unite teams around our common purposes. Following that, as we explored design strategies to embody those guiding principles, we identified a number of priorities, planning priorities specifically. First, we want to reinforce and celebrate the strengths of campus today, because we know, as we've seen this morning, there are already tremendously impactful projects underway on this campus, such as First Year Village, the WKU Commons at Helm, and following that, the demolition of Garrett Conference Center and the Hilltop Planning Study. Next, we want to accelerate campus community through those open spaces, because university campuses are defined by their open spaces, and this master plan proposes utilizing the landscape to amplify that sense of place and community. And then finally, the third priority is to manage program growth through optimized space. We want to be very careful in how we consider the removal of existing facilities that are no longer fit for purpose or at the end of their usable life, and make sure that there is a very clear need before the addition of buildings, parking, or other resources are identified. Okay, I'll hand it over to Steve.
Let's start with a snapshot of the campus today. If we go back one slide.
I'm sorry. There we go.
So this is a snap. So we're going to start with a snapshot of the campus today. What you'll notice in this map is that we've updated it to include the first year village, which is really still in construction, but it does give us a place that shows where we're starting from. And what I want to mention about this is this campus has been building and improving for decades, right? So this campus master plan is an extension of that tradition. And we're looking now to the next 10 years to see what are the most important investments that we can make in the campus environment to improve that condition. So what you'll note here in this map that kind of gives an overview of those 10-year improvements are both building improvements and landscape improvements. The landscape improvements are outlined in red, and the building improvements, whether they're new or existing renovations, are highlighted. Are the buildings that are highlighted in the solid red. And so I'll just take you through a few of these highlights in the next few slides. First, we want to point out investing in learning infrastructure upgrades. So we did an analysis of all the learning hours that are done in the different buildings, in the different academic buildings, and we also did an analysis of building condition. And what we discovered is some of the most intensely used buildings are the ones in most pressing need for building renovation. And we've identified 5 here: Cherry Hall, Environmental Science and Tech, Fine Arts, Grice, and the Academic Complex. And you'll notice that these give a nice distribution across the core academic campus so that we can improve the quality of these buildings as a very first step. So on the next slide, you'll see this has already been mentioned, and we had a nice tour of this virtually just a moment ago. But First Year Village will be a transformational project. But in addition to the building and, of course, the experience that this will enhance for students, I also want to point out the opportunity to completely transform the Southern Campus landscape. So in the lower right-hand corner, you can see it. Of course, it's currently more targeted towards a commuter or a resident parking lot. It will in the future become this amazing quad that anchors the southern part of the campus and creates this beautiful gateway. The Commons at Helm, this is a project that Gensler's been working on with WKU for over, I think, a year and a half now, and it's nearing completion. This will be an amazing transformation right in the heart of the hilltop to bring more student life and our academic support and food service offerings to that academic setting. Now, we've talked about some new buildings. I also want to point out that the building removal, and much of this was identified even as we were beginning the master plan for Garrett, College Heights Foundation, Tate Page. These are as important as creating new buildings in terms of improving both the quality of the campus and the efficiency of the campus, and importantly, creating open sites in a mature campus for new development. And you'll see that in a moment. For instance, Tate Page, by removing this building, it's really past its useful life. It creates an opportunity for a new site for a business school that would be prominently sited on the south line right across from the stadium. So you can imagine alumni enjoying the game, and there's a sort of a synergy and a connection with the business school and a symbolic connection with bringing life and energy to that south lawn area. And we have another view of that on the next slide. So here you can see the south lawn with the, in addition to the business school, which you can see in the upper right-hand corner, it also gives us an opportunity to enhance the south lawn by removing some of that some of that parking that is along Avenue of Champions at the moment, and really create a beautiful setting in the heart of the campus. Now, the landscape improvements also extend to the hilltop. Hilltop planning study was completed just before we began the master plan, and we've incorporated those recommendations to basically rationalize the existing traffic circulation, minimize parking to only what's essential on the hilltop, and with the removal of Garrett, we get this beautiful overlook. So each move in this campus master plan is about improving quality facilities, quality landscape, and steadily improving the quality of the campus. Another improvement recommendation that came from the master plan was the idea of transforming State Street. Now, we know State Street it has become a big barrier between the connection of the science campus to the hilltop. And what we are proposing in this study, and this study, by the way, is continuing, is rerouting traffic around the State Street, where State Street intersects the science campus and hilltop, so that instead it runs around Chestnut. What this allows us to do is to create a campus plaza on State Street that becomes like a transit mall. So it will have very limited traffic and be much more inviting to cross. So here's an illustration of what that can look. You can see the integration of bike lanes, special pavers, and streetscape amenities that really make this feel like one campus instead of a divided campus. Similar improvement is proposed for the Avenue of Champions at the south part of the campus. And here, this would be a great complement to the South Lawn improvements, creating a gateway at University Avenue and a bikeway that creates this great green link that goes all the way to the downtown. So if we go to the next slide, we can see a visualization of how that can be transformed. Again, it's not a big move, but by creating some enhanced streetscape and really removing some of the angled parking, we can create a much more gracious and inviting gateway to the south. Now, this is just in summary. Let's look at what we've just reviewed. We've reviewed a number of landscape improvements. We've reviewed building infrastructure upgrades, learning upgrades, and new projects. And what this accomplishes is really a transformation and improvement of almost every portion of the campus, all the way from the science campus down to the south campus. And we think that this really will create a much more enhanced, inviting, and richer student, faculty, staff experience. But any campus master plan needs to look kind of beyond the 10-year horizon. And the reason I say this is because we need a roadmap that can account for opportunities that emerge, or funding opportunities that allow projects to happen sooner. So we've identified a few projects that we're calling beyond 2031, but in fact, these projects may happen sooner depending on funding opportunities. So let's look at these for your consideration. First is, beyond the first year village, how might we continue to improve the housing program, taking offline obsolete housing and bringing online new housing and landscape improvements. And this illustration you can see here is reading left to right is a great illustration how we can take Douglas Keene Hall could be removed or renovated and expanded with a new gateway building. And that really helps to accentuate the Avenue of Champion improvements and that gateway. Minton Hall could be removed and create the space for a new quad. So that the image you see in the lower right is, imagine that Minton that's currently fills up the space of the quad right behind the student union. Imagine that removed, and now you have this nice network of quads that link all the way from South Lawn up to the hilltop. This would be part of that chain of green spaces. And so again, it is about finding opportunities for new housing sites, but also creating opportunities to remove obsolete and constantly improve the quality of the student offerings. And I think we have next slide. And on that note, building removal is really critical. We just talked about Minton. Another building that could be removed in the further future would potentially be Jones Jagger. If Jones Jagger, Potter Hall, Grice, industrial education buildings are all buildings that we've identified as buildings that in 10 to 15 years may begin to be beyond their useful life and offer opportunities for other redevelopment opportunities. And these redevelopment opportunities are identified in blue. I also want to, so I'll mention the normal street sites. These include like the Student Publication Center, the Confucius Institute, buildings that are kind of out of scale with the potential of that really important academic corridor along Normal Street. Also, IEB is another site that, coupled with a parking lot, could be a great building site that we looked at. And Potter and Grice are both buildings that are really nearing the end of their useful life, and so they could be considered for replacement in the further future. And finally, number 6 is our that site with Jones Jaggers is a potential site for expanded parking that could relieve some of the, help us remove some of the parking from the core campus that doesn't need to be there. Okay, next slide. And one-stop services is also something that can take advantage of those building removal sites. We looked at one that was on the Grice site, another one that sits right in front of the existing campus boiler site. So these are 2 alternative sites. The idea is to create a place where students can go with one stop to get their financial assistance, registration, TRIO programs, counseling, career development, all those kind of functions that are now distributed between 2 and 3 and 4 locations. They could go to one stop and get what they need. And this is a trend that's happening with other universities. And so on the longer term future, we put this for your consideration. Next slide. And finally, the new athletic practice facility. This is a project that's already been designed and worked out. We've identified it on the longer term horizon, and you can see it would be a great addition to the Avenue of Champions and very much in the theme of the master plan. And as I mentioned, this is on the longer term horizon. However, if funding became available, this could become moved up. The whole plan is designed to be flexible to respond to opportunities. And finally, to wrap up, I can show you the last slide, gives an overview of these longer term opportunities that build on our 10-year plan. And you can see, again, this theme of creating distributed opportunities to reinforce each of the parts of the campus and create a stronger student experience, both in facilities and landscape. And with that, we'd love to turn to any questions.
If I could jump in and frame this just before the questions. One of the things that we were, as we entered this process, was so important. And I want to thank Gensler for your good partnership. I want to thank the entire campus community. We wanted this to, again, to be a bottom-up, representative, shared vision for where we were headed physically. But more important than that, how does the physical manifestation of campus support the strategic plan? And those things are inextricably linked in both through the process and the final document. And so one of the things I'm most proud about is that people get excited when you talk about the new stuff. But what's most important is we lead here with existing spaces that we must take care of and maintain for the long haul. The removal and having the discipline to remove buildings that are not just beyond their useful life, some of whom have been mothballed, that have been sitting. We got to get those gone. And the last is the totality of this plan is focused on not just new and shiny, but really how does it support student engagement, student retention, and student graduation. And I'm really pleased with where we are. And on the renovation side, we're working closely with our peers across the state and the state legislature on an enhancement fund that would allow us to begin that work essentially instantaneously on renovating some of those current structures.
It's an excellent report. When I first dived into the report, I was intimidated by how could you possibly improve or change or enhance what we already have. And this report does that. It's amazing. I think it still incorporates our WKU experience and spirit. And so what a wonderful job. Very impressive.
It occurs to me, listening to this presentation, some of you may be aware that we have a new committee on campus for naming and symbols. I'm part of that committee, and I'd like for this presentation to be given to that committee sometime in the near future as well. I think there's a lot of information in here that would be useful to all the members of that committee.
We'll do that, sir.
Any other regions have questions or comments?
Found the data in the report to be quite extensive and overlapping with what my own experience is as someone who spends an awful lot of time in one of those buildings that you designate as nearing the end of its useful life. And that is what I was impressed with was the utilization of our classrooms on campus. And I know that was something that was focused on by administration a few years back to make sure that we were using the spaces that we had. But what I saw was that we are using those spaces and we're reaching the end of being able to do anything more with those spaces. So reflecting as campus leadership on how do we, student engagement and student retention also is giving them a good experience. And that's not happening in some of these buildings. And that's where our students are actually congregating as well. That's where the bulk of our classroom experience is. So we have a challenge there, I think.
I'll just comment. First of all, great presentation, very impressive plan. Only major disappointment I had was it was not available in 1983. And beyond that, I would like to challenge Dr. Caboni and the team to hurry up and raise money so we can see this sooner to come to reality.
Good.
What are the priorities when we look at all these changes? Which projects are our top priorities?
Jason, I think the 6-year capital plan that we have just kicked off again, that's required by the state, still identifies the business college as the #1 state request for the priority for Western Kentucky University. The other priorities that we're working on currently on campus is Tay-Page Hall is being raised. Concurrently, we're working on that so that we complete the first-year village landscape project along with the buildings, that's all done at the same time. And so that building will start to be taken down here in the next month or so and have the site restoration ready for fall of 2021. The other project is to complete the WKU Commons project. That building is to be open and operational for fall of 21. And then immediately following that, we're going to start to take down Garrett Conference Center. Currently, Garrett Conference Center has activities in it, including our nation recognized forensic team that has to be relocated. So those domino effects, we have to wait until we get other things completed before everybody can move out. We also currently have food service in Garrett Conference Center. So that'll take place. And then we completed a hilltop study that looked at a lot of what I call pedestrian friendly hilltop circulation. That was in our 2010 plan, master plan. It's that same desire from our professionals and from the university and the community is still to make our campus safer, make it more inviting, still celebrate the top of the hill. And you saw some of that today in the potential to take a segment of State Street up there that has always been a barrier, a lot of high traffic, but is one of the most highly crossed roadways and creates a barrier for our students to cross that safely. That's part of that study. It also, we have another spine that runs up Centennial Mall all the way up to the top of campus. And so when Garrett Conference Center comes down, it is a great opportunity to reroute some of the traffic open up some barrier-free routes that get you safely from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. And all of those are what I would call some of the priorities that we're working on today. Dr. Gaboni?
To dovetail with what Brian has said, we also have been gently investing and renovating as we go. So 2 summers ago, if I'm remembering correctly, we did some work in Cherry Hall. This past summer into the fall, we did work in Academic Complex. We've made significant investments in things you might not see in the Fine Arts Center, Ivan Wilson Hall, but were necessary, including HVAC work, plumbing work. And so we continue to invest in those. If the state is able to create this resurgence fund, essentially a deferred maintenance fund, we're going to be able to match either 50 cents or $1 to the dollar and get and essentially double or triple our money invested in those facilities. And I think even as much as, if you remember, Cherry Hall was, the thing that was most noticeable was the freshening of the paint. And it makes the experience in those buildings better. We have some significant investment to do in thinking about instruction and the way in which we take what we've learned from the pandemic and spread that across everything that we do. I think while we know that in-person learning is something that came out of this as being crucially important to our students, the other thing we've learned is that hybrid instruction is also important. And thinking about how do you use technology not to offer online courses, but to enhance and make stronger the in-person courses we teach, and what are the facility changes we need to do that. I will say that as much as I wish the state government would write a check for us to have a new business school building, we're going to have to do that in a creative way, because I don't think we're likely to. That's not likely to happen in the next 5 to 7 years, given what I'm seeing. And so we're going to have to raise some dollars for that. We're going to have to work with our School of Business to think about how they invest, and centrally to make that a doable, because it's a linchpin. If you look at the plan, it's a linchpin, not just for our students. Those of you who recall our entering class, the Gordon Ford College of Business is the fastest growing college on campus. A new facility will enable and enhance that recruitment and enrollment, and we want to make sure we provide that opportunity. Last thing, that's a placeholder building. It's not been designed. It doesn't look like that. We'll stick with that Georgian look feel. Just didn't want people thinking we're going to have a huge atrium building right there on the South Lawn.
Anyone else? Excellent presentation. If there are no other questions, thanks Brian and the team for that presentation. We got 3 other items on our information list. I apologize, there's no attachments or video to go with those. It's just more or less an oral report. The first thing I want to bring to the board's attention is to give an update on our internal auditor search. For the benefit of our newer members, the internal auditor position is a direct line report to the board. It helps us fulfill our fiduciary responsibility for guidance and oversight of the financial responsibility and accountability of the university, and obviously dovetails in with our external auditors. Over the last several years, we have focused more so on enhancing and revamping our internal audit program with much success. And so with the creation of that vacancy in the position, the board felt that not as normal, but the board felt that we needed to be a little more participatory in the interview process. A search committee was formed. Christy Smith headed that group. They identified candidates. They did first round interviews during the month of December. Those first round candidates were narrowed to second round prospects. And during the first week of January, Jason McKinney as vice chair and finance and budget chair, and myself participated alongside with the search committee group in conducting second round interviews. At the conclusion of those interviews, we collaborated as a group on scoring those prospective candidates. And as part of that, we suggested that our finalists be interviewed by President Caboni because of the necessity of the relationship, but also the fact that all this represents the WKU team. I understand that President Caboni will meet with the finalists this Monday. And so the process is closing and we're getting very close. We had some good candidates. And so hopefully within the very near future, we will have an internal auditor, a candidate to present to the full board. I would just comment that it has taken us a while, and part of that has been due to the pandemic and the challenges that creates when you're dealing with folks and Zooming and whatnot. And please realize that none of the candidates, to our knowledge, have actually been on campus yet. Everything has been conducted by Zoom. With that being said, I don't know if Christy is still on the Zoom. She wasn't. Yes, she is. Christy, do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add. Basically, exactly what you've said. The search is moving along and we're getting really close.
Dr. Caboni, anything to add?
Just my reiteration of the importance of this for objective looks at our expenditures and making sure that we're in good shape there, but also risk management. And I think that we have done outstanding work and have a tremendous platform on which to build. So I want to make sure I thank Jennifer Miller and the folks who came before. And also we have some opportunity ahead too. So I'm very excited about where we're going.
Regent McKinney, any comments?
No, I don't have anything.
So that's the update on our internal auditor. Open the floor up for any other questions or comments by one of the regents. Hearing none, I think we'll now move to the next information item, which is an update from the ad hoc committee on presidential policies and procedures for the benefit of our newer board members. Over the last probably 18 months to 2 years now, we have had an ongoing process of looking at our bylaws and looking at some policies and procedures having to do with the authority of the president. An ad hoc committee was formed. Regent Brinkley chaired that committee. It was comprised of Vice Chair McKinney, Regent Henson, Senate Faculty Chair Julie Shadoan, and Staff Senate Chair Mike Loftus. David, did I get everyone on the committee?
Yes, sir. Prior to Mike Loftus, though, we did have a short stint with the former Staff Senate Chair Jennifer Miller. But yes, you're correct. Thank you.
Okay. So back on January 8th of this current January 8th, the ad hoc committee tendered a document of a delegation of authority policy. Sometime within the day or in the next few days, that policy will be forwarded out to each board member for your information and feedback. I'm going to refer the policy to the executive committee because I think in the sense of governance and using best practices of the board that we should share this document with the president for his comment and also share the document with our general counsel so that she can take a look at it from the standpoint of legal issues and whatnot. So that document will be shared, and then there will be a coordination between the executive committee and any feedback we get from president or the general counsel, and any feedback that we get from board members as we proceed forward. I'm going to be optimistic and hope that we can present a final document for board approval at our March meeting and get this this task checkbox and out of our scope of items to do. Do I have any questions or comments on the report status of the ad hoc committee's authority policy? I have extended to David our appreciation as a board for the work of the committee and their efforts, conscientious efforts in doing this Herculean task. And I've also asked him to extend that appreciation to Mike Loftus and Julie Shadone. We don't often get the chance to bump into them on campus, and especially in this new Zoom environment. But David and your committee, thank you very much. The last item is the presidential evaluation. One of the board's duties is to conduct an annual evaluation of the president. We have done so. We systematically, strategically conducted an evaluation. The board members were participants in that evaluation. Two former board members were also asked to participate in the evaluation. As part of that, we were to share the results with the president and to have a discussion. I have met with the president on multiple occasions to talk about that. I would note, if anything, the scope of today's meeting and all of the reports and the excellence reports and the turnout on retention and recruitment and underrepresented minority participation, et cetera, is verification of what I would summarize as President Camoni receiving literally an outstanding evaluation for his efforts over the last year, and really since he arrived on campus and started in the position as our 10th president back on July 1, 2017. I have complimented him. I know each of you all have complimented him as well. I appreciate the feedback that I got from Regents to share with President Camoni. He is truly a visionary, and his leadership at our university during these last 3 years have been remarkable. When you look back and you look at the curveballs that were thrown at us almost immediately when he assumed the presidency, from budget cuts, pandemic, just so many things to mention that we've weathered and gone through. So I would like to take an opportunity to just highlight a couple of things for record purposes today. I would like to give President Camoni an opportunity to add or comment on what I've said or what I, and more importantly, did not say. And then, of course, turn to the Regents and to allow those that would like to participate in the commentary to do so. I told President Camoni that I shared with him that his evaluation with us is almost continuous because of his approach and communicate with the Regents almost on a daily basis of what's going on and sharing with us items of information and discussions and allowing us the opportunity to participate and have feedback and whatnot. Not only are we involved on our regularly scheduled board days, but we are participatory with him throughout the semester. And so this week we went into our spring semester academic year, and that brings new opportunities and challenges for us. As today's report outlines, we're in a very good place. And so I want to highlight just a couple of comments that have already been shared today, but need to be reemphasized from a recruitment standpoint. In the fall of 2020, WKU saw the largest one-year increase in the size of its freshman class at any time during the past 3 decades, up 406 students from the fall of 2019. Those students also brought the highest high school GPA in WKU history. And that was shared with us, and obviously the impact, the budgetary impact was noticed immediately. Turning to retention, the WKU 2019-2020 one-year retention rates are the highest they have ever been. In just 3 years, academic year 2017 through academic year 20, WKU's first to second year student retention increased 6.9 percentage points. The underrepresented minority retention jumped 15.2 percentage points, both representing the largest 3-year increase in WKU history. Graduation. In 2020, WKU's 6-year graduation rate rose to 55.1%, up from 50.7% in academic year 2017. This represents the highest 6-year graduation rate ever at WKU. During the same time period, WKU achieved the highest URM and low-income 6-year graduation rates in 8 years, and awarded more than 3,000 bachelor degrees, more than the institution has awarded in any previous academic year. Access and opportunity. We have more than doubled the number of freshmen receiving scholarships compared to the fall of 2019. Since its inception in 2017, the WKU Opportunity Fund, a fundraising effort to support our students, has already grown to $48 million of its $50 million target, with 136 new endowed scholarship funds. In 2019, WKU was awarded the Educational Fundraising Award by the Council for Advancement and Support of Education. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. WKU achieved the second highest score, 27 out of 36, among Kentucky's public universities in the Council on Post-Secondary Education latest report on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are just some recent highlights of what this university has accomplished under the leadership of Dr. Caboni. We've shared those conversations with him, but more importantly, in his humble spirit, each time he turns and says, yes, but there's always room for improvement. And so with that attitude and approach, I think that we can check the box today that we have completed our annual evaluation of the president. Dr. Caboni, would you like to defend yourself from my butcher job of your accolades?
Chair Higdon and Regents, so that's always uncomfortable for me to hear because it's not about me. All of what you heard today is due to the work, tremendous work of our faculty and staff. I want to extend my appreciation to the entire university community, our alumni, our supporters, our donors, for everything they've done to enable the work and the success to occur that we've experienced in the past 3.5 years and that existed before I was here, continuing to elevate this institution. I want to thank Casey for her remarkable work on the Opportunity Fund and all of our development staff. Truly, we thought that was going to take longer than 3.5 years or 3 years to hit that $50 million goal, which was just outstanding. And Regent Higdon, as you said, as much as I appreciate the laudatory comments, what's most important to me is how can we do better? Because we're an institution of constant improvement and continuous improvement. The data shows we have work to do. For us to hit our 80-60 goals, we got to work harder. We have to have more targeted investment. We all have to put our nose to the ground. So with that, I just want to say to the board, I appreciate the partnership that I've had since I've arrived and your support, the work that we've done together to enable the entire community to transform our efforts. And I look forward to hopefully many more years together with you.
Thank you, sir. Any Regents that would comment or questions or expound on anything that we've talked about?
Well, you know, I'm always happy to jump in there, and I do think it's incumbent upon all of us as board members and all of the other people on this meeting to share the WKU story. We had an email sent out to us in the last day or so about that, but trying to keep all those numbers in our head are difficult. But the progress made in the last 3.5 years has been truly remarkable. And if you really look, and I'm glad Dr. Caboni mentioned the leadership we had before this, you know, the last 20-25 years, Western has made unbelievable progress. We had great leadership under Dr. Ransdell for that period of time. And when Dr. Caboni came along, we needed a different kind of leadership. And he's provided that. And it's an exciting time to be on the board. I do want to again give a shout out to our performance during COVID. I think being healthy on the hill is a apt phrase, and to accomplish what we did the last semester, hopefully what we can repeat this semester and still allow those students to have a full experience is really important. And kudos to everyone on campus.
Thank you, Regent Bell. George?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, let me commend you and the team for the work that you all who have the ultimate role of writing all this up and commenting. And I appreciate you taking the time to articulate the metrics that really you evaluate a president against. And the fact that Dr. Caboni's efforts have shown real impact and success for the university. It's been an honor for me to sit and watch this and realize how difficult it is in our role as regents, and then to feel sorry for Dr. Caboni in his role as president. You know what? Why don't we pick some of the worst jobs in America? And I'd say that president of a university would be right up there at the top. Now, you'd also pick it as probably the most rewarding job in America because of the people that you can touch. And now you throw in the pandemic, you throw in social unrest, you throw in all those other things, and let's just make it more difficult. But Dr. Caboni, you've led gracefully. You have helped us lead the organization by being transparent in the work that you've done and how you've gone about your work. I know being a university president is not a popularity contest, and that's difficult. But the fact is, I think your success is a result of you focus on Western Kentucky University. And as long as you focus on Western Kentucky University and the role that it plays with students, then you always have an opportunity to defend whatever people like or don't like, because it's really ultimately about the students that come to us. And so I commend you for a great success that you've had in your tenure. I hope you stay a long time. And you can already tell based on the conversations we've had that Western Kentucky University has a plan for a bright future. And the question is, what will we do as regents, as alumni, to make sure we support that plan being put in place for the continued success of the university? So thank you and congratulations.
If I could step in for a moment and say, as someone who teaches and spends a lot of time with others on leadership and strategic management, leading in a collegiate environment has got to be one of the biggest challenges that there could ever be, given the diversity of thought and opinion. And the opinion that we all have as faculty that we're no more than most about everything. What I have, as some of you know, I've done a deep dive into behind the scenes strategic plan and how everything is coming together over the last few weeks to try to get a really good sense of what's going on. And what I'm most impressed with is that there is a plan, and that there's something that I see as a long-term plan, 5 to 10 years from now, that will come together and present a bright future for us. And I'm someone that is a strong believer in the power of education, what the doors that it can open. And that plan is fundamental to doing that for our region and for others. And so what I would stress, especially again, what Regent Nichols said, is I don't know if you read through the literature and look to see right now across the country, being a president of a university is not a job that a lot of people want. It is so many challenges. So how can we as a board help our president communicate the opportunities that are here and communicate that strategy? That's what I would like to know as we move forward.
Well, thanks everyone for the comments. Thanks for the feedback that you have supplied me and other members of the executive committee. We'll roll up our sleeves, President Gaboni, and participate with you in your vision. I will give the board her next task, and we spoke briefly about it a few weeks ago. We now transition into the duty and the need to discuss with the president his next contract. And so that documentation will be coming out to the board over the next few days. I invite you to call me or call any member of the executive committee with questions. The executive committee will spearhead the work of getting a contract in place to present for discussion to the full board. And I'm going to be optimistic, and without hopefully jinxing the process, I would like for us to have this work completed by the March board meeting as well. So our work's cut out for us. So expect the documentation over the next few days on that matter. It will consist of peer numbers from other similar universities. That's all I have on today's agenda. Anybody have any other items? President Gaboni, do you have any words of wisdom?
Here, Higdon, before we close today, I'd be remiss if I didn't spend just a moment reflecting upon an announcement that was made on Tuesday. Our acting provost, Cheryl Stevens, has announced to campus that she will be stepping down as acting provost at the end of June and entering retirement at the end of the spring semester next December. And we're going to have many opportunities to celebrate Cheryl and what she's done here at WKU in her career. But I wanted to take the opportunity to call out her service to this institution, both as Dean of Ogden College of Science and Engineering and the work that she did to help transform that college, and her work in the provost's office, stepping in what was an incredibly difficult time of transition and tumult for the university. Her calm demeanor, the work that she's done to help, again, accelerate our change during the past 2 years will be missed. And for me personally, her partnership, her good counsel, her willingness to challenge me, and also her ability to implement and help her team implement has been outstanding. So Cheryl, congratulations on your decision, and thank you so much for all you continue to do for us. She will be working tirelessly through June, but I did want to take a moment to say thank you, and we'll have other opportunities to celebrate her going forward.
As chair of the academic committee, let me reinforce that. And Cheryl and I have had a discussion. She was instrumental throughout the strategic planning process. And as President Gaboni said, stepped into the provost office and has done a great job, has respect across the entire campus. And she tells me she's really excited about being able to spend more time in her garden and with her grandchildren, and maybe read some a light novel. So.
Thank you both. I have had a wonderful experience here at WKU, but this does, you know, I started with an assistant professorship, my first at Xavier University of Louisiana in 1982. I am pushing 40 years in higher ed, and it's been a wonderful career, and it has been a wonderful experience, rewarding, hard work, but I've thoroughly enjoyed my time at WKU. And I just am so ready to take this next step and enjoy the time I have left. So I guess you say, I've heard people say, you have fewer days ahead of you than behind. And that's certainly true for me. And I want to enjoy them. And it's not by going to work every day. And it was not a hard decision to make, but I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it. And I'm going to enjoy celebrating over the next few months. I told President Caboni I want a party, but I know we have to wait. So thank you.
Thank you, Provost Stevens, for all you've done for our university. Anyone else? Anything else? Well, this brings us to the end of our committee meeting for January 22nd. I hope everyone stays safe and well and gets your vaccination, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that we can be on campus for our next board meeting. We're going to try real hard, right, Julia? Okay. So with that being said, we'll adjourn for today. Be safe. Thank you for all you do.